The fire reached the sky before the screaming ever did. Out on the far end of Blackstone County, where the plains stretched flat and empty like a God-forgotten ocean, flames rolled through the widow's ranch in hungry, twisting waves. Dry grass popped and hissed like rifle shots. Barns collapsed in bursts of sparks, and the old wooden house burned with a slow, stubborn fury, as if it knew the hands that built it had already been buried. Folks in town would later say they could see the smoke from 10 miles out, a black scar clawing into the pale morning sky. They'd say it was a shame, but nobody rode out to help, not until it was already done. The ranch had belonged to Eleanor. Vance, most called her the Widow Vance, some called her that crazy woman. Out past the ridge, and a few men, quieter than the rest, called her something else entirely: dangerous. She had arrived in Blackstone County 5 years earlier, alone, with a wagon full of tools, 2 horses, and a reputation that walked ahead of her like a shadow. Her husband had died somewhere in the Montana territories, and no one could ever say for sure how. Eleanor never spoke of it. She kept her eyes down, her voice low, and her rifle clean. She built her ranch by hand, and she never asked for help. That was enough for people to dislike her. The rest was enough for them to fear her. The men who burned it down were not from town, but they were not strangers either. They had been circling the county for months, buying up land from desperate ranchers, pushing out small families, claiming grazing rights like wolves staking territory. Their leader was Colton Briggs, tall, iron-jawed, and wearing the kind of calm smile that made decent men nervous. He had money, he had guns, and most importantly, he had a belief. Anything he wanted, he deserved. Eleanor's ranch sat on the only reliable water source for 20 miles. That made it valuable. That made it his. When she refused to sell, Briggs decided to make an example of her. They came in the night. They poured kerosene in the barn, on the porch, along the fences, and set it all alight with a single match. Then they rode off laughing, leaving the plains glowing orange behind them. By the time the first ranch hands reached the site at dawn, there was nothing left but smoldering beams, blackened fence posts, and the twisted skeleton of Eleanor's livelihood. But Eleanor Vance was not among the ashes. She stood on the hill overlooking the wreckage, her silhouette sharp against the rising sun. She had watched it burn, and she had not cried. Her long dark hair was braided tight behind her back. A dust-colored coat hung from her shoulders, and at her hip, strapped to a worn leather sheath, was a knife that looked like it had seen more blood than most men ever would. She looked down at the ruins, then up at the empty horizon. Someone would pay for this. The town of Blackstone sat 2 hours' ride east, a cluster of wood and tin stubbornly clinging to life against the vastness of the prairie. The saloon was the loudest building, the church was the tallest, and the sheriff's office was the most useless. Sheriff Harlan Pike had once been a good man, but that had been before. Briggs arrived with a satchel of silver and a reminder that laws were only as strong as the men willing to enforce them, and Pike had stopped being strong a long time ago. He sat in his office now, boots on the desk, hat tipped low, pretending not to notice the smoke drifting over the town like a funeral veil. Across from him stood Nathan Cole, a rancher's son with steady hands and eyes that never seemed to rest. "You know whose ranch that was," Nathan said. Pike didn't answer. "You know who did it," Nathan continued. "And if you don't do something, then every man in this county's gonna start wondering what good you are." Pike sighed, slow and tired. "You think I don't know that?" he muttered. "You think I like this? Briggs owns half the land here, and the other half he's buying or burning. That woman's just the latest fool who thought she could stand against him." "She wasn't a fool," Nathan said. "She was brave." Pike scoffed. "She was stubborn." Nathan stepped closer to the desk. "Then maybe stubborn is what this county needs." Pike looked up at him now, studying the young man like he was trying to decide whether he was courageous or suicidal. "Listen," the sheriff said, lowering his boots. "Briggs is building something big here. Bigger than one ranch, bigger than this town. And I ain't got the men or the bullets to stop him." "Then you better find some," Nathan replied. And with that he turned and left. Outside, the town looked smaller than usual, and the smoke looked bigger. Nathan had only met Eleanor Vance once before. It had been a year ago, at the cattle auction in Dry Creek. He remembered the way she stood, apart from the crowd, quiet but unafraid, eyes sharp like a hawk's. She'd worn that same knife back then too, and he recalled a man whispering beside him, "That's the woman who gutted a mountain lion with her bare hands." Nathan hadn't believed it at the time. Nobody fought mountain lions with knives. Nobody survived that. But now, riding toward the charred remains of her ranch, he wasn't so sure. He found her waiting on the ridge, still and calm like a statue carved from the dust itself. "Did you come to offer condolences?" she asked, without looking at him, "or to offer something useful?" Nathan swung down from his horse. "I came to ask what you plan to do next." She finally turned her gaze on him. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds. "I plan," she said quietly, "to make them regret it." Nathan nodded. "I was hoping you'd say that." They stood there in silence for a moment, the wind whispering through the burned grass, carrying the smell of smoke and something else beneath it. "Resolve. You can't take Briggs alone," Nathan said. "I won't," she replied, "but I will begin alone." Then she stepped past him, walking down toward the wreckage. Nathan noticed the knife again. It wasn't just worn, it was sharpened, and something in his gut told him the stories might be true after all. Miles away, in the shade of an unfinished timber outpost, Colton Briggs leaned against a post and watched his men finish off a crate of whiskey they'd stolen the night before. "Burning that place was a waste," one of them said. "Could have taken it, sold it." Briggs smirked. "Sometimes," he said, "you burn things so the rest of the world remembers who's in charge." "And what if she comes after us?" Briggs shrugged. "Then she'll die too." The men laughed, but Briggs didn't. He had seen Eleanor's eyes once, at a distance, through a rifle scope. He remembered thinking, that woman has already killed something that tried to kill her, and that made her a problem, one he intended to solve. As the sun began to dip low over the plains, Eleanor stood alone among the ruins of her ranch, the wind pulling at her coat like it was urging her to leave this place behind. But she wouldn't. This land was all she had left of her husband, and she would not let it be taken from her. Not by Briggs, not by anyone. She knelt in the ashes, digging through the blackened remains until her fingers brushed something metallic beneath the char. A belt buckle, her husband's. She closed her hand around it, and for the first time since the fire, her expression faltered. Just a little. Behind her, hooves sounded on the dirt. Nathan had returned. "You shouldn't stay out here alone," he said. "Briggs's men might come back." "Let them," Eleanor replied, rising. "I'm done running." Nathan studied her a moment, then spoke softly. "You're not what they say, are you?" "No," she answered. "I'm worse." The wind shifted, and somewhere far off in the darkening hills, something roared.